Hey guys, Daniel James here. Today is the 28th of March, and what I thought I'd do today is an update blog to keep you all up to date with what I've been up to. And also, on Twitter and Facebook, I put out that I was going to answer some questions, because you guys asked me a lot of questions and I'm not always the best at responding straight away. So I'm going to answer a load of those. So first up, what have I been up to? So as you may have noticed, there's not been many videos recently, and that was the first thing I wanted to talk about, because as you know, I'm in my new studio now, new studio for like maybe 6 months or something, and the whole time I've been here, I've been waiting for fibre optic broadband to come in, because at the minute my broadband connection is 0.3 megabits upload, and my videos, because they're like an hour, sometimes 2 hours long, they take, you know, they're like, they could be between 2 and 5 gigabytes, and on a 0.3 megabit upload, that sometimes takes like a day or 2 days to actually physically upload. So, you know, with all the work I've got to do and stuff, it's not actually that kind of doable right now. Like, this video may take a while to upload, or, you know, I'll go upload it at someone else's house, which isn't always convenient. But yeah, there are more videos coming. So far, I've been speaking to Strezov Sampling, so I'll be doing a video on their stuff. Orchestral tools, I'm thinking of doing one. Berlin strings, I've been talking about that, and there's a few others that I've been working on, so they're coming soon. And Action Strikes I actually plan to do, because Contact's released 5.3.1, which seems to have stopped my Contact crashing all the time, which is good, considering you need to use it all the time. So yeah, they're all the videos that are going to be coming. And I'll say this at the beginning, I'll say it later as well, but if you wanted to keep up with what I'm actually doing, I don't normally post to YouTube unless I'm doing something like substantial, whatever. I don't post like 3-minute videos or whatever to YouTube, because I don't want to, spam people's inbox. So if you want to know like what's happening, you can follow me on Twitter at H2Daniel, or I'm on Facebook as well. And I normally post like the shorter things that I'm up to there. And then, when it's, I've got a lot to talk about, I'll post it on YouTube. So what else have I been working? Okay, so I'm working on the follow-up to Project Alpha, which is called Project Bravo. So we're going up the Alpha, Bravo, Charlie, Delta alphabet. So think of it as like Project Alpha 2, but it's called Project Bravo. Me and Aaron, we've been making loads of sounds on that. I don't know. I'll load some up. We've been working on like kind of like sounds like this. So that's just like a loopy thing. We're going more kind of aggressive, synthetic with this one. What we've done, like with Alpha, with Project Bravo, what we've done is taken what people were begging us for more of in Project Alpha, and we're expanding on those, filling out so that there's more variety in the things that you liked about Project Alpha. There's going to be more of that kind of stuff in Project Bravo. But we've also like completely redesigned like the whole synth part of it, and we're trying to make it so that Project Bravo, Project Alpha was like made sounds pretty flexible, but with Project Bravo we almost wanted to make it like its own synth. So you could take like a raw waveform and you can import your own sounds into it. We'll show how to do that this time. You could do it with Alpha, but with Bravo there's going to be a lot more to do. And so we've made it so that you can like bring in your own waveforms and then turn them into these crazy like distorted sounds like this. But we've got more of like the whole, just impacts and stuff like that. We've also with this one done breaks, like drum breaks and stuff. So you've got I don't know. Some drum loop type things. People were asking us for those, because normally when I compose, I take like a drum loop, like when I'm doing my rhythm section, I'll take like a loop and I'll manipulate it and create something else. We've also expanded on the rhythm concept, and we're trying to make it a lot more flexible with rhythms and stuff. And like I say, the whole synth section is going to be like completely overhauled. We're introducing some new like weird, crazy scripting things. So that's all like exciting. Tiring, but exciting. I don't sleep much. So yeah, we've done that. And like speaking about Project Alpha Bravo, we're doing a Project Alpha sale spring sale. It's from next Monday, which would be the what? What is next Monday? Next Monday is the 31st. So from the 31st to the following Monday of March, we'll be doing a Project Alpha sale. So, you know, if you've been looking to get Project Alpha, check that out. So yeah, that's coming next week. What else? What else have we been doing? Yeah, I've been doing actually quite a lot of composing, which is weird. No, it's not. Why is that weird? So I've been I did some music on a video game, which I can't talk about till next month, I think. I've been working on another video game called Strife, which is a PC MOBA type game. Yeah, I can finally say that, you know, I had the opportunity to work on. I got to help Ian Livingston out with his score to the video game Formula 1 2013, which is the racing game. I got to help him out on the score on that. He did a good job, and I just kind of brought me to the table and helped him do his thing. But that was really cool. So yeah, lots of video game stuff, which is really awesome. Since last time we spoke, I went to LA when I went to the NAMM show, which you saw the video of, and I got to meet Greg Edmondson, who's an amazingly nice guy. And Jamie Christopherson, who did the music on Metal Gear Rising, Revengeance, and he was just as nice. You know, if you haven't seen them already, I uploaded videos meeting those. And then after that, I came back for a week, and then I flew to Japan for some meetings that I can't talk about here yet. But I also had the opportunity to meet Ludwig Forsell, who is the composer on Metal Gear Solid 5 Ground Zeroes, which just came out, which is an amazing game. And I got to meet Daniel Lindholm. I was planning on doing blogs, but the thing about Japan is I got inebriated very quickly. I don't know why that happened, but I actually kind of forgot to get the video out. I took some pictures like while I was around and stuff, but I forgot to actually film. But I will be going out there again in the next few months, so I'll try and remember to actually film when I'm out there. But yeah, they're both great guys. So Daniel Lindholm, I think I just said, wrote the music on some of the music on Resident Evil 6. He's an equally nice guy. Everybody I meet seems to be nice. Met with some agency people out there, and you know, they're pushing things in directions which is amazing, because it's like you can feel a ball rolling kind of thing. And you know, I've spoke at length many times about my desire to work in the video game industry. So to have this kind of you know, this feeling of momentum, it is both inspiring for me, and you know, it just, you know, it makes you feel validated in what you're doing. You know, like, so as I'm working, it feels good what I'm doing. So that's all the exciting things I've been up to. So yeah, what I'll do now is I'll cross over to the other section where I will be answering questions that you guys sent to me on Twitter and on Facebook. So start that now. Okay, so questions. I'm going to start with the questions from Twitter first. Hopefully they'll come up on screen as I say them. So the first one is from, oh my goodness, at rpartykatu. And he asks, what are your go-to libraries, and also how do you start a composition? There were a few questions from other people, one also from at Edri Hiliaro. What do you usually start with to start a composition, like the first instrument you load, and what electronic drum sampling do you use? So when I start a composition, I think that means like specifically libraries, but how I start a composition depends on the which library I choose depends on the composition. So if I'm doing, say, like an action track, I'll start with something really actiony, like the rhythm section. Like, I'll start with all the percussion, I'll block it out with percussion, and then I'll fill on top of that. If I'm doing, you know, like something soft, I'll start with piano. Something melodic, maybe on strings. So it really depends. So, but to specifically answer the question of which libraries I use. So when I'm doing action, I start with percussion, like I said. So I normally load up Drums of War, ADO Taikos, ADO Epic Percussion, Damage. You know, I'll load those patches up first. If I'm doing something emotional, like I say, piano, I'll either go to Nave Instruments The Giant, which is a nice sounding piano, or the ADO, or no, Sound Iron Emotional Piano. It was Tone Hammer when I got it, but it's one or the other. Yeah, and if it's strings, I'll normally load up an ensemble patch. So it'll either be Cinestrings in ensemble, depends how, like, I go to Cinestrings, yeah, Cinestrings ensemble patch if I want to make it a bit more kind of intense and actiony because it's got a very strong kind of sound about it. If I'm doing something a bit more kind of chordish, is that a word? A bit more paddish, kind of like that, I'll use cinematic strings by Cinematic Sampling, because they both have amazing ensemble patches. So like I say, it depends on that, and then I literally I pick whichever instrument I think will boost what I started with. And normally, like if I'm padding things out like with cinematic strings or cine strings, I will normally take the pad out because I would have replaced it with other instruments. But you kind of give and take as you are putting things in. But normally I will block a track out with one instrument first. If there's an instrument that goes all the way through, you know, like if it's a 3-minute trailer piece, you know, there's probably going to be spiccato strings. So I'll do like this. I'll do the rhythm section with the spiccato cellos and basses first, so that I get an idea of what the rhythm will be throughout the track, and then it's much easier to build on that. Or, you know, if I've built the percussion section, I've got the rhythm base of the track done, so it's just thinking about melodies and, you know, how I want to augment that. So that's how I start that. Question 2. How do you come up with a motif? Your music is amazing. I would love to see a live screencast one day. When the new internet thing gets here, the new internet connection, I've actually been planning on doing HD live screencasts if you guys are interested in watching that. And I think YouTube now offers like streaming capabilities in HD, so I'll be looking into do that. As for how I come up with a motif's a weird thing. So when I went to college for 2 years, I trained to be like a singer, like a pub singer, or, you know, like in a function band or whatever. But one of the things you learn when you learn to sing is about harmony and inner harmony. So when you're singing with other people, you learn how voices move together. So when I think of like a motif, I don't normally think of like one individual sound or melody. I think of like a kind of harmony, like, and how it works within the rhythm of a track. Because for some reason, when I write, I feel very rhythmic. Like I'm thinking more about the rhythm than the melody. So it's just a case of, you know, sometimes I'll play like a melody on my desk or whatever, and you can just feel it, you know, like it's hard to explain. It's one of those. It's like driving a car. You know how to drive a car, but it takes a lot to explain exactly how you do it. You just kind of do it without thinking. It's basically just an instinct thing. You feel when a kind of rhythm or a melody is right for that certain piece. There's no set way I come up with a motif. It is a lot of the time I'll just look at a rhythm, you know, either on like just MIDI with a drum patch, you know, and I'll just get a melody, a rhythm that works with other rhythms, and then go from there. Or, you know, I'll just kind of do something and hope it sticks. If it sounds good, I'll keep it. If it sounds shit, I'll delete it. So sorry that isn't more helpful, but yeah. That was from at Thrandall, by the way. Okay. This one's from at MG Hardinge. Sorry if I'm pronouncing these wrong. He or she asks, what's the best VST orchestral and percussion plugin? I struggle to find realistic yet punchy programs that sound professional. So the thing with VST plugins, so first off, the VST part of that I think is incorrect in what you're asking. So a VST is like a plugin. That's something that you load up in your DAW, you know, either as an instrument or, you know, as an effect. So the VST in this case would be Contact, because a lot of the libraries I talk about, and you know, like 99.9% of the tracks I use are using a VST plugin called Contact, which is a sampler, which is a VST plugin that plays back sample libraries, which are basically a big folder of WAV files that are mapped to a keyboard. That's the easiest way to think about it. So if I think what you're asking is what samples do I use? Well, not which ones do I use? What are the best ones for orchestral and percussion? And that's such a wide topic. It really depends on what you're after. But like my breakdown, so I already mentioned which percussion I use. I use those for pretty much everything, as well as Cineperc if it's going more orchestral, or, you know, I'll really dig into Damage or DM30. What is it? 30 something. 30. That Heaviosity's new thing. If I'm going more hard edge and, you know, modern, I'll go in that direction. For strings, it depends what you want. So if you want like action, legatos and spiccatos, you want either Cine strings, which is good for both, or you want LA scoring strings, which I prefer for the short notes, but I'm not a big fan of the legato. It's very kind of brittle and dry. You have to do a lot of work. You can get it to sound good, but it's more work than loading up Cinestrings, for example. If I'm doing something soft and melodic, I'll go to cinematic strings, which you'll find this is the thing, that all the orchestral libraries and percussion libraries out at the minute, the ones that I'll talk about, are all amazing. So it's just a preference on what you use. If I'm using brass or something, I'll use like Cinebrass or Albion by Spitfire, which is also cool. If I'm using, I don't use woodwinds that much, but I'll probably use something out of Albion or Symphobia. Symphobia for strings and brass as well. And that's really about it. Like I said, for percussion, it's more about, just layering up different libraries to get a bigger sound. And I very rarely use, Hans Zimmer percussion's good as well. Even though a lot of people think I hate it, but I don't. It's all, like, percussion is all about layering. So the more different libraries you get, the more you can alter the tone of your overall percussion section. So, it's really just about getting different things and then finding what you personally like to sit in your track. Okay, so the next question from Twitter comes from at Ivory Soundnet. Will you start using Bitwig? For those of you who don't know what Bitwig is, that's basically a new DAW made by former employees of Ableton who make Ableton Live, which is what I use. There's the backstory. So I've actually downloaded the demo of Bitwig, and I tried it out in the beta and stuff. I really like Bitwig, and I like what it's trying to do. I was talking to Aaron, the other guy in Hybrid 2, and we're kind of big fans of the being able to do your own scripting, like actual scripting within the engine. So it allows you to actually program into the engine things that it may not come with already, which makes it almost unlimitedly expandable if you know someone who knows how to program that language, for example. So that in itself is quite exciting. I love it's got something called plugin crash protection. So if a plugin crashes in your DAW, which is normally the point when if your DAW crashes, it's normally because a plugin crashed, not the DAW itself. It's got plugin crash protection, which is if your plugin crashes, only the plugin will crash, and it will come up in its little box at the bottom, and it will say, this plugin has crashed, do you want to reload? So that your DAW will not crash, which is, for a lot of people, an amazing thing. I think it does this by loading each plugin as almost like a standalone, and it feeds the audio out and back in. I haven't seen any noticeable latency by doing it that way. I have had Contact crash while using it, and it does work as advertised. So what happens is, like in Ableton Live here, I don't know how well you can see this. Like at the bottom, this is Contact here. And what happened is when it crashed, basically this little box where Contact is just turned off, and it said Contact has crashed, which and normally what would happen in Ableton Live, for example, is the whole DAW would have crashed because the plugin is hosted within the DAW, so they kind of become the same process in the system, whereas Bitwig loads each plugin as its own process. I think that may be more CPU hungry. I didn't really notice much of a difference, but so I've seriously considered a move to Bitwig. I prefer the aesthetic look of it, and I like how you can tell it's made by former Ableton employees because it's got very similar kind of like feel to the way it works. But as a version 1.0, I'm still a little bit reluctant because it doesn't support video, which I need, for when I'm doing films or cutscenes from games and things. But it's definitely on my radar as one that I will probably pick up as a sound design tool at some point, because it's got so many cool features which get me excited in the nerdiest kind of ways, which is great. So yeah. Okay, so the next question comes from at Hiroshan DM. Yes. How do you mix and master tracks? How do you add so much reverb and still make the instrument sound so clear and sharp? And then there's a few more. So these next two are from Facebook, from Etar Milkovic. I apologize if I'm pronouncing these wrong. He'd like to know which additional EQs and compressors I use for the orchestral tracks. How much processing do I do after I've completed it? And along the same lines, Massimilio Forte, how do you do mixing and mastering? So I'm putting these ones together because they're kind of in the same thing. So mixing and mastering. I get this question all the time. How do I do mixing and mastering? So my like big tip, my big secret to mixing are these, I guess. When mixing, I hardly ever think about mixing. The first thing I do, and normally sometimes even the only thing I do, is I get volume balance right. So what I'll do is, say I've got strings and brass and percussion and all that, I'll just move the volume faders. You can't see it here, but I have like a control desk with motorized faders and things. I will literally just pull the faders until they sit well. Normally it'll be something like the percussion's too loud. And you just need to remember, I've spoken about this a few times, is that every piece of music needs to have a foreground, a midground, and a background. The foreground is what your listener is actively listening to. Think of it like your eyesight. You can only ever look at one thing at a time. Like, for example, I'm looking at the camera. I can see everything else around me, but I'm only focusing on the camera. Think of music that way. So the thing you're looking at, or the thing that sorry, it works the same with your ears. So you can only listen to one thing at a time. You can hear the rest of the music, you can hear the drum track, but normally you can, like if you listen to a pop song, you're listening to the vocal. You can hear the music around it and how it fits together. You know, your brain fills in all that information, but you're only actively listening to one thing. So always think about that. What should your listener be hearing right now? Usually it's a melody, or if there's some clever chord trick, you push that in the volume up, you know, you make that the focus. And then below that, you have things that you kind of want them to be aware of, but it's not as important as listening to that thing. So normally like a counter melody, or, you know, the chords that support it. And then behind that, you have the background, which are things like effects and, you know, like delays and things like that that go back. So you should always look at it like a layered thing. And that's just getting the volume balance. I always, so to answer the question about reverb, I don't use reverb sends. A lot of people do, and I know a lot of people think I'm stupid for doing it this way. So I basically have an algorithmic, well, the way my DAW is set up, you probably can't see it on the screen, but I have basically group tracks. So I have a group for strings, a group for brass, group for percussion, group for winds, group for other stuff, and group for synths. And what I do is I put a reverb insert on each of those and give it its own reverb. So strings has its own reverb that makes all the string libraries sound like one cohesive section. The brass has the same, the percussion has the same, you know, they have their own. And then what I'll do is I'll put all the libraries in, and when you put reverb with an insert, you get it with send as well, but it's easier to control with an insert. You have a dry-wet control, so you can have how, you know, if it's sounding too dry in a mix, you can just pull the dry back and let it be a bit more wet. If it's too wet, you can dial the wet all the way back and just have it really in the background. So I find inserts, you have a lot more control over the amount of reverb. So reverb will bring in, you know, but by design, it's reflecting the same frequencies. So if you've got like a very prominent, I don't know, like mid-range hump in the or in the low mids or something, you know, you're using lots of cellos, you'll get like this muddy kind of 120 hertz sound in the music, and when you put that through reverb, it just gets louder. So while it may have been tolerable without reverb, with reverb it just sounds like mud and it sounds shit. So then you just put an EQ after the reverb that just cuts that annoying frequency out. And the way I do it is I get the EQ, make like a, you know, like a point, make a tower like this, and I just swipe left and right until I find frequencies that sound shit, and I'll just cut them a little bit. I never boost something unless, you know, I'm doing it for effect. I always just cut out what sounds shit. And then you do this while everything else is on, by the way. If you do it by itself, sometimes you run the risk of just it disappearing underneath another instrument. And then I go down and do the same for that. Yeah, I always work with a mastering chain on. Not everybody does that. So I always work with an EQ, a compressor, and then another EQ, and then a limiter. They're always on my master channel. So a lot of people say that's the wrong way to do it because you can't, you know, you can't balance something, or if you have an individual instrument, you know, it'll be louder than a track as a whole. But I use a plugin called T-Rax, which is a mixing mastering plugin, and yeah, so I have an EQ first, which is like corrective EQ. So that is basically doing what I do per track. Is, you know, I make the tower and I sweep across until I find things that sound bad, and I cut them out till it sounds very, you know, kind of level and nothing's poking out sounding crap. Then I compress it so that it's taking all the loud peak. If you don't know what compression is, I'm taking the loud peaks and I'm making them a little bit softer so that I can turn the bass up. Not the bass, but like the quieter bits I'm turning up and the loud bits I'm turning down, so that it's more of a kind of you know, a tighter kind of formidable sound. Then I have an EQ after that to boost things that may have been taken away in the whole compression thing. So maybe I'll give it a little bit of like an overall bass boost, you know, to make it a little bit more, you know, give it a little bit more kind of oomph, or a little bit more high end to make it clearer, whatever, you know, something like that. And then a limiter on the end. If it's something epic actiony, you know, normally I'll push the limiter a little bit, get a little bit of that kind of, little bit of distortion, which kind of adds to the kind of chaos of the whole piece of music. If it's something soft, you know, very little limiting you shouldn't really have any limiting on something romantic or something like that. But yeah, I always have those on. Specific plugins, like I say, I use T-Rex. I use a lot of the Ableton Live plugins, built-in ones. I think they're great. What else do I use? There isn't really much else I use specifically. If I use something else, I'll bring it out for effect. So that's how I do mixing and mastering. Volume, focus on the layers, work with the master channel on, inserts on reverb. So yeah. Okay, the next question from Facebook is from Andreas von Kosel. Sorry about that, got that wrong. If your plan of becoming a composer or founding Hybrid 2 hadn't worked, what would be your alternative way? Do you have a plan B, or would you follow your aim until you've reached it? So those who know me know that I have very specific career goals. I know exactly what I want to be doing. And so I think if being a composer wouldn't have worked and Hybrid 2 wouldn't have worked, you know, it would have been odd that, you know, I was pursuing this kind of line. But my aim has always been to work in video games, and more specifically to work on a Metal Gear Solid game, which, like I say, is a very specific goal. But I've always found that like my skill set you know, leans towards you know, technology and entertainment. You know, like even in these videos, you know, I like to be the entertainer kind of thing. So if you know, being a composer for whatever reason hadn't worked out, and you know, doing Hybrid 2 didn't work out, I would do something that entertains people, and I would try and find a way to link that to my ultimate goal of, you know, working on a Metal Gear. So I'm not sure how I would do it, but you know, I'd find a way. I found that having a very specific goal allows you to kind of push all your energy in one direction, which you know, it kind of gives it more presence. You know, like when your goal is one specific thing, it's very easy to know if what you're doing is the right or wrong thing for you. But yeah, like I say, I don't have a specific plan B, but I am confident in my own ability that if it didn't work, I would find something else to do. You know, I've never worried that I would be stuck with nothingness in front of me. You know, a plan B is always important. I was very fortunate being a composer that I had like my family supporting me while I was developing my skills and things like that. A lot of people don't have that, so maybe that's why I was kind of ignorant to the, you know, the prospect of having a plan B. But yeah, I feel within myself that I've picked the right career choice for me, because I think it kind of combines all the things that I both like and am good at. Some people just have a natural ability for certain things, and I think what I do now is a combination of the things I do the best. So if this didn't work, I can't honestly think of much else I would do other than this. But yeah, luckily for me, so far, touch wood, it seems to be going okay. And it's odd because like I actually do a lot of things at the same time. So it's almost like I'm constantly doing plan B. So if if my composing work didn't work out, I would have my sampling business. If my sampling business didn't work, I'd still have composing. And then of course I've got entertainment, you know, like, or being, you know, education, doing like the review videos. So I'm actually doing a lot of things at the same time. So I'm kind of like doing plan B and C while doing plan A. And they all kind of, you know, coexist. They all kind of are the same thing. But yeah, hopefully I haven't, you know, jinxed myself into complete and utter failure. But you know, what I do is what I do because it's all I can, not all I can do. It's what I believe I excel personally at doing. So yeah. Okay, the next question is from Matt Bowdler, and he asks, have you eaten anything other than pizza or McDonald's this month? And the answer to that is yes. Yesterday I had a kebab. The day before that, I believe I had Chinese. So yes, is the answer to yours. Okay, next we have Veos. Oh, I apologise for this. Veos Christoulou Aleximites. Sorry about that. The brass always sounds great in your tracks. Which library are you using in your latest tracks? For brass, I always do, if it's big epic things, which I think is what you're talking about, I use Cinebrass Pro for the main lead lines, as well as like the monster brass, which is really big and epic. I use Albion 1 for the chords, for like the trombone type chord parts. And that's pretty much it. I mean, I use Symphobia's staccato brass for, you know, for the short staccato like rhythmic stuff. But other than that, it's mostly Cinebrass and Albion. Masik Dabrowski asks, I think I saw you using Nomad Factory Magma on some of your videos recently. Are you liking it? So yeah, Nomad Factory Magma, I actually use all the time. It's what I call an effects plugin. I mean, that's what everybody else calls it. But it has things like compressors and, you know, EQs and things like that. However, I don't use them as like corrective. I don't use them as mixing plugins. I use them as effects. So if it's for compression, I'm really compressing something. If it's EQ, I'm boosting something with distortion. And yeah, Magma I actually really like because it's got plugins that cover pretty much every bass. And if you've ever used Spectrasonics Omnisphere or Stylus RMX, I think it uses the same types of plugins. I think the Spectrasonics plugins may be by Nomad Factory. If not, they're very similar. But in design, they're very similar. And they're great as effects plugins. I use the distortion in it all the time, the trance gate, you know, the LFO, not the LFOs, the tremolos, the chorus, the flange. I use them all, but it is a effects unit plugin for me. And the cool thing about it, particularly in the update, is that they've added modulation support, so you can use it almost like Omnisphere. You can right-click a parameter and then send the modulation to an LFO. You know, so you can have like the distortion turning up and down, or you can have like a chorus, you know, affect the sound for 1 second and then be off for another. You know, you can be all really creative with it, and you know, you can have up to like how many can you have? Maybe like it might be like 40 plugins in it at a time. Obviously, that's a big CPU hit, but as an effects plugin, I use it on everything. Mike Marino asks, do you have any resource recommendations regarding learning more about composing music for video games? So specifically composing music for video games, I've never actually, I don't think I've like read a book or seen a video or anything like that. I know that my first recommendation for any type of learning is going to YouTube and just searching for it. That's how I actually learned a lot of the skills I now possess, which is one of the benefits of living in a modern age, I imagine. I've had the ability to learn a lot just by, you know, self-education, looking at what's there. Other than that, I've learned a lot from going to the VI Control forum. I can't remember the address. It's like vi-control.net, perhaps. That could be incorrect. So just do a Google search for VI Control forum, and you know, there's industry professionals galore that work that post on that message board. So if you have a genuine question, well, not even a genuine question, if you want to learn something, you just ask, and you know, they're all pretty nice there. Even if not everybody there is nice all the time, if you can wade through the shit, there's some absolute diamonds on that forum who will answer your questions, give you the best advice, and you know that you can learn a lot just by listening to people better than yourself. And that's something I try to live by, even though people think I don't. If ever someone if ever someone says something to me that I didn't know, or that I think is worth knowing, I will take it from anybody. I love to learn from other people, because you know, as a human, you're limited by so many experiences. You know, you're not going to get to experience everything in your life. So if someone has experienced something, listen to them. If they tell you something based on experience, you know, they're more of an expert than you. So don't let ego or anything like that get in the way. Listen, take it in, and then use it to become part of yourself. Very important lesson. And the last question for now, there are more questions, but I believe this video is pushing into long territory. So I will answer more in a future one. I'll make a post on Twitter or on Facebook saying, you know, requesting questions. So if I didn't answer your question, just save it, and then the next time I ask, post it, and I'll make sure I read it. Okay, so the last question comes from Scott Hayworth, and he asks, how many hours a week do you spend networking? Are there any particular places you do so that have been that have been some real significant effect? Cheers. Okay, so I don't have a specific time or like schedule for networking. I think networking, the word networking is almost kind of disrespectful within itself, because if you put a tag on networking, it almost sounds like you're being disingenuous with people, like you're only meeting people for the sake of networking. So the best way to think about networking is making friends. You know, making friends without ulterior motives, because a lot of people go, like, they hear what networking is and then they treat it like something they have to do. You know, so they'll go up to like game developers or, you know, other composers or publishers or whatever, and then they'll pretend to be friends with them because they think that the only way to further the career is making, you know, like, by, you know, listen to my demo, listen to this, what do you think of this? That's not the way to network. The way to network is to not put a label on it like that, and it's more to just being a person, being a human being, and going out and meeting other like-minded human beings. A lot of the networking I do is just, I literally make a point of flying out and meeting people and trying to make friends. You know, like when I go to Los Angeles, for example, I stay with people I've never met in person before sometimes, and that's networking, I guess, because, you know, these people will happen to have connections you don't have in some circumstances, but you're not being disingenuous with them. You're not only meeting them for that reason. You're meeting them because you want to, as a human being, meet other like-minded people. So when you think about networking, don't think of it as something to further your career. Think of it as something you would do as a human anyway. So networking's all about going to places like GDC or, you know, Games Music Connect, or I don't know, Video Games Live. You know, going to these events and meeting people who share a similar interest, and not going there with the intent of, oh, this particular person will further my career, therefore I shall only speak to them. You know, that's not what networking is. Networking's about, you know, becoming a part of the community, becoming a part of, it's basically just about being a human being with people. So as to the question, how long do I spend doing it? I guess I spend all day doing it. You know, I talk to people all the time on Facebook, on Twitter, on Skype, you know, going out, I fly to different countries and meet people. It's just, you know, I just want to be everybody's friend, I guess, you know. So when you guys are messaging me, you know, like having conversations and things, you know, so long as I'm not like crying from sleep deprivation because I've been working on Bravo all night or something, normally I'll strike up a conversation, because it's the kind of things that I find interesting. You know, it's the things that excite me, the things that inspire me. So when people are, you know, like-minded and they're genuine about their passion along with mine, you know, I want to talk to these people, and, you know, then you become friends. And, you know, if that person one day happens to know someone who knows someone who, you know, which turns out something in your favor, that's great. But you don't go into it with the intention, because people will see through your bullshit. You know, people will realize you're being disingenuous, and then you're just shooting yourself in the foot. You know, it's all about just going out and being yourself and meeting people. And what was the other part of the question? Any other particular places? So I guess you could call going on a message board networking, getting involved in conversations about things that you believe in, things you have a passion about, things like, you know, anything that defines you. You know, joining communities like that is networking. And, you know, work can come from the weirdest places sometimes. So, you know, just be nice, generous, courteous, and, you know, friendly to every single person you meet. Not because you want something from them, but just because that's how people should live. You know, like everybody should get along. So yeah, that's my view on networking. But yeah, I have no idea how long this video is. I hope you guys found it useful. And like I said at the beginning, there will be more overview videos and, you know, educational type things coming up. So keep an eye out for all that. My Twitter is @H2Daniel. and you can find me on Facebook and all the other places. There aren't any other places. VI Control Forum, I'm there. And yeah, like I say, feel free to message me whenever you like, and keep an eye out in the future for all the future videos. I hope you guys have found this Q&A session helpful, useful, whatever. If not, I apologize for wasting your time, but I hope to see you all again in the next video.